Okay, so I'm gonna break this part of the discussion session into three parts. Partially because I think it's gonna be easier for me in order to
Well, what did you expect?
do it with my schedule, my time. But another thing is I think that it may be helpful for you to be able to separate some of the different stages of the game from early game to mid game. Hang on, let me fix my audio because I have been told before that it's very hard to hear me over the audio. So I want to make sure that that's not the case. Okay, so this game, we'll talk about draft real quick. So you pick T and everyone except for the Leshrac. There are a couple things to be concerned about with this pick. So as always, I'm just a fan of TA. I think that most games with TA are winnable, especially in the lower skill brackets. If you're just playing well and you're clean, you can buy a BKB and basically avoid everything. And obviously, you can play T into counters even though it's hard. So they have three heroes that you need to be concerned about. They have the Leshrac, the Skywrath, and the Clockwork. Now, each of them independently possess a different kind of threat. So the Skywrath by himself does not really threaten you unless he has like something like an Atos, and you have no way of getting out of the Atos, and he can burst you down with his spells. The Clockwork represents threat in dives because it's pretty easy for him to hold you under. He's relatively tanky. The Battery Assault makes it hard for you to get autos off. And then the Leshrac represents a lot of kill threat. Having watched this lane, not only do you own this Leshrac, but you absolutely decimate him, and then he gets level 6, and you stop giving him, you don't give him the respect that he deserves when he hits level 6. This hero's level 6 power spike is incredible. His W is really good at bursting through refraction. He has a stun, he has a slow. He is able to dish out damage while kiting you, which a lot of heroes can't do that. So Jug is another hero where, like, let's say you were right on his ass and he's running away from you and spinning, you would still take the spin damage even while he's running away. A different example of that is, a counter example is same hero Juggernaut. If he's running away from you and he's not spinning, he can't do damage to you. Leshrac can do damage to you while he's running, and he's going to, because why not? He's already running away. He's just going to press the spells, and at the very least he'll harass you down. So, when I am looking into this game, I am thinking about being able to burst heroes quickly, to really be a -1. I feel like it's very, very important for you in this game to recognize that team fighting is going to be very difficult. You basically have to have a BKB in order to team fight. And if you're not able to team fight for whatever reason, like let's say you're PA who is like ultra countered this game, basically the only hero that isn't countered by PA, that doesn't counter PA is the Juggernaut, but all of them are able to hold her down with some spell, burst her down with magical damage. Very, very hard for her to play the game, and so you need to be aware somewhat of how your carries game is going to go. So this game screams to me, having not watched anything out in the first 10 minutes, since that's what I'm going to talk about right now. This game screams to me pick off and split push and pulling the enemy apart until you guys are significantly far ahead to where you can actually get an objective. It also screams Roshan to me. While they do have the Clockwork for Roche, which is kind of annoying because Rocket Flare for vision plus Hookshot to hypothetically snatch the Aegis can be problematic. It is so hard for you to fight into Male Dick plus Witch Doctor ulti plus Omni plus all Leshrac spells plus Skywrath. You basically have to be BKB'd in order to fight any number of them. And then even with BKB, the Omni Slash, if you're not careful, can wear you down. So, some alternative items that you can think about this game that may not be completely standard are like Manta and Hurricane Pike. I know in your message to me you said I also thought I would try out Hurricane Pike because it seemed like the perfect game to try this build as they had clock cogs. I would also add that they have Leshrac, who, if you can pike him away, will do no damage to you, and you can often burst heroes in 4 hits. Something to mention, you may or may not have already known this. I'm actually going to exit out because I want to discuss it really quick while we talk about this. Is you can actually meld attack from the pike autos. So if I get a hero here, messed it up because I was still in the thing. Okay, let's pike him. So I can hit, but I can also meld from any distance. So you can do quite a bit of damage with these autos. And the utility of pike is really good. I don't think pike isn't underrated on TA. I actually think it's a pretty like niche item, but I see lots of TAs go this item, and I think it's fabulous. I don't always go it, but I go it, I don't know, a decent portion of the time. Maybe 20% of games or something like that. Okay, let's hop back in this replay. So I think your thought for the pike was good. You talk about the Orchid. This game, Orchid is okay. It helps you deal with the Juggernaut more than anyone. So Leshrac is very, very likely to get a Yules, and probably even a Ghost. And we already talked about how you have to have a BKB, and so there's kind of this balance between Orchid for pickoff versus like BKB for fights, right? So obviously you can only have so many items, and you can only farm so many items so quickly. And even though you do have a Phantom Assassin, before, Desolator was more about armor reduction and less about damage. And currently it's more about damage and less about armor reduction. So while there is some counter synergy in team fights to having two Desolators on the team, there's not really any blaringly obvious reason that you can't. Like, PA can also go different items. If it's really that bad, like, this isn't always the case. In general, your carries game should matter more. As TA, you are kind of the position one. Like, the game largely rests on your shoulders to perform, and while having a good team backing you up can be very, very helpful, you have to prioritize yourself over anyone else. Think of yourself kind of like an alchemist. If your carry is farming a camp, maybe you don't go and grief that camp, but your carry doesn't grief your farm either. You're like very, very equal on the farm priority. And so for itemization as well, I don't have any issue going Desolator on TA if I have a Phantom Assassin. And I think we've seen one or two games that I've watched that you have sent me where you've gone Orchid, and I don't feel like it works out. I think it's much harder to play around that item. Your burst damage is so much slower, or so much lower, that it's really a excuse me, it's really an addition to your kit and not a core item. I feel like you usually don't need to go Orchid. There's often other items that deal with things better. Excuse me. And you should not be afraid of going to Desos, basically, is what I'm saying. Okay, so we'll watch Delayed. I don't want to talk about too much in the first few levels because I feel like other than maybe missing some easy CS or being a little bit sloppy with like letting him deny that range creep and stuff like that, other than that, you play very, very, very well in this lane, and you absolutely decimate him, and we'll watch as the last hit counter ticks up that at some point you're like 25, 28 CS, and he's at like 7 or something. I would like to see you get at least a stick in this lane. I don't feel like you always have to upgrade to wand. A lot of times, if my enemy mid is someone that casts spells consistently, like a SF or a Leshrac or a Zeus or something, even a Storm Spirit, just getting a casual stick just to be able to spam your spells and get that extra health regen. You choose not to fly out a salve. I think that's generally a mistake. There's kind of two reasons to getting a salve. One is the defensive aspect, so if you like take a bad trade and get bursted down, so like this Leshrac wishes he had a salve right now instead of this like random Fairy Fire, or sorry, Null Talisman, because he can't really lane because of his HP, and you're taking advantage of this perfectly. Now, I have watched this lane and you never click on him, and I think it's a mistake. You need to be clicking on your opponent consistently to see what HP he has, what kind of mana he has, the items that he has. For example, if you click on this guy, and I know this is ridiculous like at this point in the game, but let's just say you click on him and he has a 20 stick. Like, you're going to play very, very differently if you're trying to dive him and get a kill if you know he has a 20 stick, right? But you never allow yourself to take advantage of that information because you don't collect it. So this is like a very simple thing. I've harped about it in basically every coaching session I've ever done for mid, because people don't do it. And to be honest, like a lot of high MMR players don't do it. I don't do it as consistently as I should. It's just something you have to get in the habit of, and you absolutely have to do it. Anyway. I really, really like your movements in this lane. I feel like you have like gained a lot of comfort on last hitting and being able to side blade heroes, and so that's really reflective in your play. And this Leshrac is certainly appreciating how awful this lane is for him for the first few levels. We're going to fast forward a little bit. I've already talked about the stick. Okay, so something that you need to consider in every TA lane is power spikes. So I know in some of the previous little sessions we've had, we have talked about being aggressive, being on their side of the map, and like how much do you prioritize yourself over prioritizing shutting down the enemy. I know at one point I said, I think if you're sacrificing your own game to punish the enemy, it isn't going to work most of the time. Being aggressive is something you should do and you get away with it, and I think that applies here. So you do a couple moves here. In a minute we'll watch where you run over to the small camp and you take that small camp away from him. That is aggression that I think is good. I think that it works. And then later in this 10 minutes, we're going to see times where you do it and it doesn't work, and we're going to talk about what the difference was when we get there. But back to power spikes. So you obviously have an enormous power spike in kill threat when you hit level 6. You kind of have a mini power spike at level 3 and at level 5 because of the additional damage and defensive charges on your refraction. Here, I guess he suicides to go to base, would be my guess. Okay, never mind. He says, what the heck, I couldn't move. So here's a good example, right? You get level 6, you set a trap in the right spot, and you go and you form this camp, and you're aggressive. And you've got 2 levels on this guy. And this is where you kind of have to ask yourself the question, like, now what? So there is your power spike, which is right now, and his power spike is when he hits level 6. So when he hits level 6, even though the fact that you're going to have 20 or 30 or 40 last hits on this idiot, his level 6 still gives him kill threat. He's a level-based hero, not a gold-based hero, and you're very much a gold-based hero. So I would like to see you trapping him and hitting him here. You at least trap him. It takes you way too long of a time to get this trap back up where you had it, which is kind of unfortunate because I feel like you miss out on some aggression here. Like, he could just get trapped. And if they don't have a sentry, there's no reason to not place 2 traps here. Like, you can place 2. I would never place more than 3, but I've seen 3 before. And that does a couple things just with aggression, and like the damage to mana cost on your ult is so good. 15 mana cost for 250 bonus damage. And then besides the fact, it makes it easier for you to land side blades. So there's kind of a couple opportunities here where if you were just a little bit more diligent about keeping that trap up on those stairs, it would change the lane. Okay, so let's look at this. So now he's level 6, and you're being aggressive here, and he's not punishing you, and he should have punished you. It is way, way, way too easy for him to Lightning Storm stun, Diabolic Edict, Pulse Nova, and run you down. And you should just die here. And this is kind of an example of if you were playing versus good Leshracs every single game as TA, you would do better in this matchup because you would have been punished for it. So let's say I'm playing this Leshrac, I would punish you there very hard. And you don't get punished, and that kind of gives you some false confidence, I think. I'm sure you've heard of a Dota 2 player called Sing Sing. He's used to be very popular in the scene, but he's kind of died off. Anyway, he makes funny YouTube videos that I don't watch because he doesn't really play YouTube or play Dota anymore. But he had this saying where he said, just because we're running doesn't mean we're scared. And I always thought that was really cool because it's like, well, if you get out of position, like the balance of power shifts. So now that this guy is level 6, you get out of position when you are away from your tower and he is high HP. And you do not respect this. Like here, again, he should just kill you. Like, you are playing aggressive. Like, if you're playing versus a Shadow Fiend or a Storm, like, this is fine. Versus a Leshrac who's level 6, this is not fine. He has way, way, way too much kill threat with his power spike. And so your posturing needs to be much more defensive instead of aggressive, because you actually get punished if you are aggressive in this case. I like that you're pushing the wave. I don't like that you're crossing the river now. So I don't remember if this is where you die or not. It is. And you can see just how fast these guys melt you. Like, the Skyreth basically accomplished nothing there other than to slow you down briefly. And this is a great example of when you should be pushing the wave to get it off of your tower, because he wants to be pushing your tower with his edict. And then you should be jungling and just playing your own game. And it's not about stopping the Lesh. It's about making sure that you don't get run over by this guy. So here, again, great aggression on the Skyreth. Unfortunately, there's a Leshrac in the game. He's TP'ing in. I think you get a little bit too manly. If you're more consistent with these traps. I know you have one here. It's just invisible. Like, you place this trap, like, just trap him and get the hell out. Run. Like, just run for your life. Get to your tower. Ask for a TP. And hopefully you get out. So this is a really, really good example of a lane that you decimated, and then you did not respect the shift in power when they get the wins. Death Prophet is another great example. I recently played a game on my Smurf account versus a DP, and I went to contest a rune, and we were both level 6, and I'm like, it's fine, we're just going to contest a rune, and she ulted and just, like, killed me in 2 seconds. And I'm like, holy cow, like, I completely disrespected how powerful this spell is. And the TA, like, DP matchup is another great example of, like, you kind of own her in the lane, and then she hits level 6, and all of a sudden she can own you. So, and that's fine. Like, you can get around this, but you're going to get around it with farm and not with continued aggression. So here, it's like the tower's hitting, creeps are hitting the tower. Leshrac is not showing on the map. You are out of position. So, you get the tower. You shouldn't. Like, this just shouldn't happen. You're getting away with something that you shouldn't. And again here, like, this is all textbook aggression that's going to work in most of your TA games. And it's not going to work versus the heroes that they have. This is that combo we talked about before the game even started, where Clockwork is just kind of tanky, and he gets on top of you, and it makes it hard for you to hit him, and then if the Skyreth is anywhere in the area, his ult just shreds you. So we're going to end this laning stage here, because we have covered everything that I felt like we should. Hopefully this is helpful. I will begin the upload shortly.